The snow had only just begun to fall in Hallstatt, a quiet village nestled against the deep waters of Lake Hallstatt. The Alps stood like ancient guardians, shrouded in mist. It was the kind of winter that silenced everything, except for the sound of footsteps crunching in the snow. Inside a modest wooden cottage near the water's edge lived 12-year-old Elias Gruber. He was a quiet boy, with a curious mind and a deep affection for music. His grandfather, Joseph, had once been a celebrated violinist in Vienna, but now lived a secluded life after a mysterious accident ended his career. Elias would often sneak into the attic where the old violin case sat gathering dust. The instrument inside had an unusual glow and a carved inscription that read, "For den, der Zuhört," for the one who listens. Joseph never spoke of the violin. He forbade Elias from touching it, saying it brought only silence, not sound. But that only fueled Elias's curiosity. One evening, after a long snowfall, Elias heard something strange. A faint melody drifted through the attic ceiling, not from speakers, not from outside, but from within the house. Soft, eerie, and impossibly clear. He crept upstairs, careful not to wake his grandfather. As he approached the violin case, the sound grew louder. The lock on the case had somehow come undone. He opened the lid. The violin was glowing, not from any reflection or light, but from within its wood. As he reached out to touch it, a voice echoed through the attic, gentle but urgent. "Play only when the bells toll." Startled, Elias spun around. No one was there. Behind him, the ancient church tower rang once, then twice, then 3 times. Elias gripped the violin. Snowflakes fell through a crack in the roof. The room went silent. Then the clock struck 4, and the strings of the violin began to hum on their own. The 4th toll faded into the cold air. Elias stood still, breath held, as the attic fell utterly silent. The violin, warm and strangely heavy, trembled slightly in his hands. He had not touched the bow, yet the strings continued to resonate softly, like a breath held too long. Suddenly, footsteps sounded on the wooden stairs below. He snapped the case shut and turned just as his grandfather appeared in the doorway. Joseph froze. His eyes locked on the violin case. His voice was sharp but quiet. "You opened it." Elias nodded. Joseph stepped into the room, the light from the window catching the lines on his weathered face. "You must never open it again. Do you hear me? Never." "But it was playing," Elias insisted. "It sounded like it wanted me to listen." Joseph placed a hand on the case. He was trembling. "I knew it would come back. I prayed I wouldn't live to see it." He turned and left the room without another word. That night, Elias lay in bed listening to the lake wind tapping gently at the window. He couldn't sleep. The melody still echoed faintly in his mind. A phrase unfinished. In the darkest hour of the night, he crept back into the attic. The violin case sat quietly in the corner, closed once more. He approached it, breath slow, and noticed something new. A note had been slipped beneath it. He unfolded the yellowed paper. "When the bells toll 4, the path reopens. Bring it home." The attic was empty. No sign of Joseph. No footsteps. No breath but his own. And outside, from across the sleeping village, the church bells began to toll once again.
1, 2,
3,
4.
The next morning, Joseph was already awake, sitting silently by the stove with a letter in hand. His eyes were distant. When Elias entered, he did not look up. "You received something," Elias said gently. Joseph held the envelope toward him. "It's from Vienna. From people who once believed in music. Now they only fear it." Elias opened the letter. The message was brief. "The cycle begins. The boy is the last. Send him to us before All Souls' Night." "That's 8 days away," Elias whispered. Joseph finally met his eyes. "I tried to protect you, tried to lock it away. But the violin chose you. It never chooses lightly." Elias asked, "What does it mean by cycle?" Joseph took a deep breath. The violin was not built for performance. It was built for memory. Every 100 years, it wakes. And someone, always someone young, is drawn to finish what began centuries ago. A song not meant for this world. Elias looked down at the case. It wants me to go to Vienna. Joseph nodded. There's a chapel in the old city, St. Michael's. Go there. You'll be expected. That evening, as the last light dipped behind the Alps, Joseph handed Elias a train ticket and a sealed envelope marked with the conservatory's crest. He whispered, "Do not play it again until you are there. And do not let anyone else hold it." The bells rang 4 times that night. Elias didn't sleep. Elias boarded the early train, a foggy dawn casting the hills in silver mist. He sat by the window, the violin case beside him, and watched as the mountains rolled past like sleeping giants. The carriage was mostly empty, except for one man. He wore a dark overcoat and a green velvet scarf. His face was sharp, pale, his eyes a gray that seemed almost blue in certain light. He watched Elias without blinking. Each time the train stopped, Elias tried to change seats. But the man always followed. At last, near Linz, Elias slipped into the luggage carriage. Wooden crates and old trunks surrounded him. The smell of coal and cold metal filled the air. He nestled behind a stack of parcels, holding the case tightly. His heart thudded with each passing mile. Then, the velvet-scarfed man entered. "Don't hide," he said softly. "I know what you carry." Elias stayed silent. The man stepped forward. That violin was meant for someone else. But no matter. As long as it reaches the chapel, the result is the same. The train lurched violently. Crates toppled. The violin case slipped from Elias's grasp and struck the floor. It creaked open. One string rang out. The man fell to his knees, clutching his ears. Elias seized the case and ran, jumping from the slowing train as it neared the next station. In the distance, a tower bell rang. Rather than heading straight to Vienna, Elias took a detour. He followed a path his grandfather had once mentioned, to the town of Salzburg, the place where the violin was born. There, hidden in the shadow of the Festung, was a derelict workshop half consumed by ivy and snow. Inside, dust blanketed every surface. Tools still hung in place, long untouched. A cracked window let in a shaft of light that fell upon a single object, a journal, bound in dark leather. Elias opened it. The handwriting was cramped but elegant. It belonged to Matthias Albrecht, the maker of the violin. Albrecht had crafted 6 instruments, each tied to ancient tonal structures, each meant to contain echoes, not just sounds, but spirits. Only one violin remained. The final one. The last entry read, "I do not know if I have imprisoned a melody or a memory, but something sleeps in the strings. May the final player choose wisely." Suddenly, the door creaked open. The man with the velvet scarf stood outside. "You've gone too far," he said, stepping in. Elias backed away. But the bells of Salzburg tolled. Vienna felt colder than Hallstatt. Its grandeur, once romantic, now seemed watchful. Elias navigated its winding alleys until he found the chapel, a humble stone building tucked behind a line of frozen trees. Inside, the chapel was dim, filled with the scent of incense and candle wax. A woman in a gray habit waited by the altar. "I am Sister Clara," she said gently. "He told us you would come." She led him beneath the chapel, down ancient stairs into the crypt. There, at the heart of the chamber, stood a stone pedestal carved with musical symbols. It pulsed faintly, like breath beneath stone. Elias opened the case. The violin shimmered in the candlelight. Sister Clara placed her hand on the pedestal. "The cycle ends here. You will finish what was begun. But beware, the composer waits." Before Elias could respond, the chapel doors above slammed open. Footsteps descended. Cold, calm, deliberate. The man with the velvet scarf stepped into the light. Clara gasped. "Herr Bosner." He smiled. "I have waited longer than you can imagine." Bosner circled the chamber slowly. Clara whispered, "He was once a genius. But he wrote a piece that could not be played without consequence." a melody meant for the threshold between life and death. I wrote it for those I lost, Bosner said, eyes never leaving Elias. But I was never allowed to finish it. He pulled from his coat a bow, its hair shimmering silver. The boy is only the instrument. I am the composer. Elias stepped back. No, Clara said. He is the final player. The choice is his. Bosner struck the stone floor with a bow. The pedestal cracked. The violin strings began to hum on their own. Screams echoed faintly through the walls, not in fear, but longing. They want the final note, Bosner said. Give it to them. Elias gripped the violin. The chamber shook. Elias raised the violin. The chamber filled with spectral light. Shadows emerged, musicians from centuries past. They took their places silently, bows raised, hands poised. The melody began. Elias played. The others followed, though their instruments were unseen. The music rose, ethereal and immense, a sound between breath and memory. Bosner watched, eyes wet. Yes, he said. That's it. Now finish it. But something held Elias back. The final bar was missing. The notes were blank. He looked at Clara. There's no ending. There never was, she replied. It must come from you. The spirits hovered, waiting. The world was still. Elias closed his eyes. He remembered Hallstatt, the cold lake, his grandfather's voice, the first whisper of the violin. The missing note was never written because it had to be chosen. Bosner stepped forward. Play it. Give them peace. Or give me power. Elias lifted the bow and drew a single note, soft, low, pure. A-D. The chamber burst with light. The shadows lifted their arms skyward and vanished. Bosner cried out and dissolved into dust. The violin cracked. Its strings fell silent. Elias awoke on the chapel floor. Sister Clara knelt beside him. It is over. Outside, the city breathed quietly. The first snowfall began to fall. Elias returned to Hallstatt days later. Joseph met him at the door. No words, just a long, quiet hug. Together, they climbed to the attic. The violin case sat empty. Joseph placed a candle beside it. It won't sing again, he said, but it remembers. And as dusk fell, the church bells rang once more.